Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It is Friday, May 23rd, 2025. We get together most weekday mornings at this time, 8 o'clock Central, to talk about strategies, tips, share techniques, and success stories. We will not have a training on Monday, June 26th, sorry, May 26th, because it is Memorial Day. So what brings us together, I think, is a common desire to help us fulfill our mission. Number one, as a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, we received a grant to help improve financial literacy. There are a lot of people out there that want money, that need money to start or grow a business, but that they lack the sophistication, they lack the knowledge, they lack the financial literacy to understand what does it take to have a fundable business. So often that they'll be focused on the wrong concerns. They'll say, "Oh, well, my credit's bad. That's my problem." No, bad credit's not your problem. Bad credit can be addressed very quickly. Credit is temporary. Credit is fluid. Credit does not have a memory. So no, it's not credit issues that's keeping people from getting funded. What's typically keeping them from getting funded is they don't have a fundable business and they don't even know what that means. So that's objective number one that you and I work together on, is building financial literacy. And then secondly is actually increasing access to capital. So having the knowledge allows them to make sense of it all. But from the where the rubber hits the road, we actually need to deliver. We actually need to facilitate them having a fundable business and getting funding. So those are the two things that we do, and I think it's likely what brings us together, all of us, the commonality. So today's agenda will start like pretty much every other days. We like to start with just first of all, welcome any of you who are new resellers, just to cover some basics. So the term reseller and grant coordinator means the same thing. It's just kind of what your approach is. A number of you like to go out and educate, just focus on building financial literacy. We have what we call the 3E approach that makes that really simple. You're able to use the on demand financial literacy training called the 27 Mistakes. Then you do an evaluation, and we've trained you how to do that, and you should have the tools. If not, let us know. But you do an evaluation of the client to help them come to their own conclusion of what is the best option they have to solve their problem. Well, what's their problem? They need money to start or grow a business. So, is there an absence or a shortage of money? No, there's lots of lenders, banks, credit unions, alternative lenders that want to loan money, but they want to loan money to who? To fundable businesses. So, with that being said, does anyone need help getting started? Lamont is new. Welcome, Lamont. And Lamont has a new client. So what happens is once you become a grant coordinator or reseller, we send you the implementation packet that has editable client agreement. You take our information off, change pricing if you want. All the instructions are on that page. And then once you have a client under contract, you're going to text us on the support line and we'll get you access to your portal so you'll be able to upload that contract. And I'll give you the support line here in a minute. It's at the bottom of the agenda. So welcome aboard, Lamont, and great job on getting a deal in. Just speaking of Lamont, so our average distribution partner, so we'll say grant coordinator, reseller equals distribution partner, so generic term. Our average distribution partner works with us on a part-time basis. It's a side gig for them, but the average distribution partner does a deal a day, 5 a week, 20 a month. And it's not always even, might be 3 today and none for a couple of days, but that's what's the norm. And so if you do that, I mean, it's good, right? It puts you right at about 100,000 per month. And that's a really nice sweet spot to be at if we're trying to pursue funding, when we're able to show the lender that we actually know what we're doing, that we're actually a competent business owner, and we have a significant amount of cash flow coming in. Guess what happens? Then we have much more borrowing capacity. But anyway, if anyone else needs help getting started, let us know, whether it be during the Zoom today, or I'll make sure you have the support text here at the bottom of the agenda. Yesterday, we rolled out the concept of blank check financing. And so we had about a 20, 25-minute discussion yesterday about how you can use this philosophy to be able to attract more clients and get them to engage. So it was a really good discussion. If you missed that, you can go back and see the recording. But the pitch is essentially this. If I were to give you a blank check to write any amount that you would want for money to start or grow a business, how much would you want? I put together this real simple graphic, which was nothing more than walking over to the car. On the hood of the car, our company car, I put our checkbook and just took a picture of it. But that just gives you a bit of a visual, right? And so you may want to do the same thing. Instead of using our blank checks or our car hood, you could use your own. But you have to understand that you're different than most people. You're factual, you're logical, you're strategic. A lot of people are just kind of floating out there, they're skimming, they don't analyze. And so you have to find almost some psychological, not tricks, but tools to get them to pause for a moment and listen, because if they'll listen to you, you can educate them that there's a formula for funding, there's a recipe, and anyone can follow it. But most people don't know it, most people don't follow it, or they don't have the ingredients for the recipe. And that's, of course, what you and I provide through the Fundable Shelf Corps. So, any questions from yesterday's training on blank check before I get into part two today? If you have any questions, comments, concerns, just type it into the Q&A. It is like a chat box. Okay, I think we're good there. So let's expand the agenda and continue. As I mentioned, this is just simply something I did yesterday as a visual. When we ordered checks from the bank, it's on actually a binder, which you don't see on a 3-ring binder. And so I just did a picture of that on my hood. As I mentioned, you may want to do something like that for your advertisements just to try to get people's attention. Now, you might say, well, is this a farce? I mean, is this true? This sounds like a scam. It sounds too good to be true. Well, that's why you have to educate them. No, literally, they could write any number into the blank check, and then we could build a plan to accomplish that. But it's not just because they want the money or they just need the money or wish for it or pray for it. We need to qualify for it. And that's what we do as technical advisors. That's what we talked about yesterday. We're technical advisors. So legally and ethically, we can build the documentation to support whatever it is they want. Now, our Fundable Shelf Corps come pre-designed for 100,000, right? That's what it's made for. The business plan, the collateral, the financial projections, it's built for 100,000 capital raise. So certainly 100,000 would be the easiest number to write on your blank check, any one of them. Now, if they want more than 100,000, that's fine, but does that mean that it magically happens? Of course not. That means that we now need to meet the fundability standards of that larger capital raise. We had a gentleman, Mark, call in this morning. Let's see if Mark's on the Zoom today. I don't see him. I thought he was going to join us. But, Mark was asking, well, if for his company, if he wants more than 100,000, so let's say he's going to write in $1 million, and that's an average amount, $1 million, then what does that do to the plan? Well, it depends, because we know exactly how to get to 100,000. When you go from 100,000 to any amount larger, now we're going to have to look at the mitigating circumstances. So what that means, and as a president of a bank, I was having lunch at the country club back when I worked at the SBA. And I took him to lunch because I just wanted to pick his brain. And so he was literally the president of the bank in the area in East Texas. And so mitigating circumstances was a term that he used. And so what that means is if we're going to go above 100 on any of these blank checks, that's okay. But now we're going to need to look at all the variables. So there's not a simple, consistent answer of what's it going to take to go from 100,000 to X, whatever that variable is. It's going to depend. It's going to be conditional. We'll have to work with the client on it. So that's why you hear us so often say, well, let's get the client their first 100,000. Maybe the client's going to do 3 different capital raises. Let's say that the first check we're going to use for the client is to get them money to pay for the Shelf Corp, and you determine how much that is. As the distribution partner, you determine what the sales price is. Most of you are selling it for 15 to 20. So first we need to write in 15 or 20, whatever it is, on check 1066 to get them the money to pay you for the Shelf Corp. And then maybe the second round of money is specifically 100,000. Well, why is that? Well, that's what the Shelf Corp's ready to do. It's ready to go for 100,000. And then maybe we write in a much larger amount on 1068, the third of the 3 checks, because we know exactly, we can guarantee check 1. We can get everyone funding to pay for the Shelf Corp, no question about that. We can guarantee everyone check 2, which is at least 100,000. That's in writing. That's a promise we make. We can accomplish that because, again, the Shelf Corp's already set up. When we get to check number 3, that larger amount, in that example, $1 million, well, now we're going to have to put together a plan that's specific to that client. So there's not a generic, simple answer for this. So we can always answer how we're going to get the first check to them, how we're going to get the second check to them. The third check is, it'll depend. We've got to work on their circumstances. All right, so let's move on to the agenda. So as we think about the blank check approach, so it's not a different deliverable, right? What are we doing? We're offering a fundable Shelf Corp to clients so they're able to get funding to start or grow a business. So we've not changed that. This is just a bit of a different approach of how to get the conversation started. So with that being said, let's go through the 4 reasons. So first of all, kind of similar to what I hinted to before or earlier in this conversation, anyone that thinks that, like I had a client or maybe a prospective client, I don't remember who it was, earlier this week, wanted validation that the SBA is real. It's like, are you serious? You're wanting me to prove to you that the United States Small Business Administration is real? That's very awkward, right? They didn't even know the right question to ask, so they're just kind of floating out there. But the bottom line is, you and I can get people 3 blank checks filled. The first one should be enough to pay you for the Shelf Corp. The second one should be 100,000 because that's what everything's set up for. And then the third check is, well, what above that do they want to need? So we just need them to understand that there's not some conspiracy. People, it's interesting. People that are broke think everyone's broke. Not true. People that have shitty credit will often think everyone has shitty credit. That's not true. The average credit score in the United States is 714, according to Experian's website. People that don't have access to funding often think, oh, there's no funding available. Well, that's not true at all, right? There's all kinds of statistics that show how much funding banks and the SBA program is lending. So there's lots of money. The problem isn't that there's not money. The problem is we need to be fundable. So the first point of the 4 of why we might want to use the blank check financing approach is just to clarify, yeah, no matter what they put in for this third check, yeah, that's doable. Now, what it's going to take to be doable, we'll have to work with them. But first, we need to get them the check to pay you for the Shelf Corp. Then we'd prefer to get them the first 100,000 because we're ready to go for that. Then we can work on the third. Second reason to use this approach, as we just say over and over, and it's interesting to me, I'll have conversations with people and say it, and it just doesn't seem to stick. What is the key to getting business funding? It's to have a fundable business. Now, I know that this term here is a little bit abstract. And so then we could go on to say, well, it often comes down to having a business set up the right way in the 3 C's: credit, collateral, capacity. So there's more behind it. But this in itself is crucial because so many people, they're just like, no, just get me the money. I just need money. Well, do you have a fundable business? And it's amazing. You ask people, well, do you have a fundable business? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, yeah. But that's where you want to bring that comparison sheet out that we were talking about in the 3E process. They often don't know, right? It's like asking Greg, who's on here, Dr. Fulcher. Dr. Fulcher, what is your cholesterol? Now, he's a doctor, so he would probably know that, but most people really don't know. And it's best if you don't know something to admit you don't know it. What's bad is to make shit up. And so a lot of people say, oh, my cholesterol's fine. Well, is it? When's the last time you had it checked? Do you know what it takes to have a fundable business? Most people don't. That's why financial literacy is so important. So using the blank check approach opens up the conversation about, well, great. Yeah, we can put whatever number you want on check 1068, whatever number you want, and we can work with you to legally and ethically accomplish it. But you know what? It's not too good to be true. It's not a scam. It's not a game. It's not monopoly. We will need to qualify. We need to have a fundable business. Okay, moving on. The third reason for using the blank check financing approach is that we educate that we can legally and ethically build a fundable shelf corp for them to accomplish whatever capital raise that they desire. So as I've mentioned, it's ready for 100,000. So check number 1067 that we write to the client will probably be 100,000 plus or minus, but right about 100,000 because that's the guarantee. That's what everything's built for. Can we go after more? Absolutely. But there's other variables, there's other conditions that have to be met that are not clear because people will ask me, well, how long is it going to take to go from one check 1067 to 1068? I don't know. We're going to have to dig in and see, right? What are the mitigating circumstances of the client? Do they already qualify for this larger amount? If so, then we can go instantly into it. If not, we're going to need to address it, right? Because you have to qualify. You have to have a fundable business. And what fundable means changes based upon how much money you're going after and frankly also what you're going to use it for, called use of funds. Fourth and final reason that you might want to consider using blank check financing is we want them to engage, right? So we can educate till we're blue in the face, but if we don't actually take action, then they're not going to see results. And if we don't take action, you don't make any money. We've got a lot of smart people on here. Lamy, I tried to call you last night, you didn't answer, but we got Lamy and Joe and Mike C. I mean, we've got people that can go make 100,000 a month doing a dozen different things. But in our world, we should and we could be making 5,000 profit per client, average one per day, and that's the upfront income. And then you're generating 5 points of the client's capital raise, which is a much larger amount. So we need people to engage so they recognize what they want and you generate income. We need them to buy a fundable shelf corp from you so they have the infrastructure so we can go get them a large capital raise. Now it mentions here again, no out-of-pocket cost. And so I can add a WAC. Just keep in mind, and Kenny was commenting earlier, Kenny's doing it wrong. No offense, Kenny. Kenny's doing it wrong. Kenny is not selling it as no out-of-pocket cost. Oops, as no out-of-pocket cost. That is the design, right? The design of the program is for the client to buy a fundable shelf corp from you and have zero out of pocket because we get an app from them, a finance app, no hard inquiries. We submit it to our network of lenders and we're able to get them offers. The average person is going to get a bunch of offers, more than enough to pay the reseller, the grant coordinator, the distribution partner for the fundable shelf corp. So they shouldn't even need check number one, which would allow us to go right to check number two, which we know is a guaranteed 100,000, and then we can continue on to get them as much as they need. So if you're not pitching the fundable shelf corp as being available with no out-of-pocket cost with approved credit, you're really missing it. You're missing the opportunity to help more people. It looks like I misspelled desired there, didn't I? Thought it would self-correct. Let's there we go. All right. So before I get to the note here, any questions on the 4 reasons why you might want to use the blank check approach to generating more clients, to educate them and to enroll clients? Any questions on that? Okay. And so the 3E approach, we've had separate training on it. And actually, well, I'll go ahead and pull up the rest. So when you go to 509 Pacific, sorry, 509pacific.org and say, yep, I'd like to be a grant coordinator, there's a form there. No contract to fill out, no money to pay. We're going to send you an implementation email. I made reference to that when we were up here on agenda item number 1. That has, now, it didn't always, but if you don't have a current one, text us and let us know you need a current implementation packet. We'll send it to you, no cost, no commitment. But it has training on the 3E approach. So let's just go ahead and reflect on that briefly, since that's where we are in the conversation. So who can remind me what the first of the 3 E's are? So there's 3 E's if you're using that approach. What is the first E? Yep, number of you have it. It's educate. Because here's the problem, and I know I'm redundant, but we've got to be on the same page with this. People don't know what you know. A lot of them either lack information or they have wrong information. So they're unable to make good decisions because they have an absence of good information or the presence of bad information. We need to educate. We need to educate. They don't know. They don't know what it takes to have a fundable business. So how do we accomplish that? We have the 27 mistakes on demand. You don't have to learn it. You don't have to create it. It's on demand, and you should have access to that. If you don't have access to that, text us and say, hey, I need that implementation kit again that should have came initially. Now it has the 3 E's, and it provides you immediate access to this curriculum to use. If you're not using that, it's your choice, right? We're not telling you, we're not a franchise model. We don't charge you to be a distribution partner, and we don't tell you how you have to develop clients. That's what you bring to the table. You go out and create awareness and educate and enroll how you'd like. But if you use this approach, it's simple because it's already packaged, it's already there. So I plead with you to consider starting with educating them. And it's also a big CYA because I've had this. I've been burnt before. Some things you would assume people know, right? Because in life, you don't start, right? Every conversation you have with an adult, you don't start by teaching them the ABCs, right? And I know that's hyperbole, that's an exaggerated example, but you assume that they know the alphabet. So we have to go through life making some assumptions of what people already know. And these are either current business owners or prospective business owners. So it's not like we're preying on the school bus driver trying to hit them with some advanced concepts. No, these are business owners. So what I've been burnt on is assuming people had a base level of knowledge. A lot of them don't. We CYA, we cover our butts, substituting A for B there, by first training them. So I know some of you are requiring people to do this before you'll even do anything else with them, because otherwise you could sign them up, right? They enroll and they're like, well, I didn't know that I needed a business checking account. No one ever told me I needed to have a business checking account. Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of a given, but here we cover, I think, everything, which is great. So encourage you to do that. And then the second E, which Joe mentioned and several others, is evaluate. So now we need to create a relationship with the prospect and make sure that they understand that we have a solution to their problem. Well, what's their problem? Well, do they need money to start or grow a business? If they do, then they should be evaluating options, right? Otherwise, it's not a very big problem to them. If they just say, yeah, I need money, but I don't care, then it's not a problem, right? It's just a background circumstance. So we use the comparison grid to compare what you and I offer versus other options they have. But psychologically, what happens? Most people don't have any other options. So they usually don't have a plan B or a plan C or a plan D. So guess what that means? Psychologically, it means what you're offering is a really good damn deal because they don't even have any other options, especially that guarantees the funding, guarantees them that blank check, the number on the blank check, I should say, and no out of pocket cost with approved credit. So this is a good way to determine how active you are because I know it's easy to measure how many clients you've enrolled. Let's take this week. So this week of May, ending on today, the Friday the 23rd, uh, you may or may not know how many people you've educated because it's a bit more passive, right? You're giving them a link, but you should know how many evaluations you've done because you should be actively evaluating these people. Sometimes I'll have some of you say, "Well, yeah, I sent them the comparison grid." That's fucking lazy. You don't just send someone a comparison grid. You need to evaluate with them. You need to go through it with them. So let me ask you for a moment. We're going to pause. How many evaluations have each of you done this week? Which means you're interfacing with them and going through the comparison grid. Go ahead and take a moment and type in to the Zoom Q&A. It's like a chat box. How many evaluations did you do? Because what we know is if you do the first two steps, most people will enroll. And in fact, about 80% to 90% will enroll if you've done steps 1 and 2. So I'm just curious if you could type into the Q&A, how many evaluations did you do? I was talking to a real pessimist earlier this week, and he's like, well, for me to do a deal a day, for him to do a deal a day, he'd have to have this massive, massive funnel. But not if you do it our way, because, yeah, we need to educate a lot of people. But as long as you do the evaluation, you got about an 8 to 9 out of 10 chance that they're going to enroll. But if you're not following this plan, and you don't have to, again, we're not a franchise model, right? You didn't have to sign some franchise disclosure. You didn't have to pay us anything to be a reseller. You didn't have to sign a contract. So you can do it how you want to do it. But if you do it this way, we can very easily hit a deal a day with a very small funnel. But if you're not doing it this way, I don't know what your outcomes will be. So the key way to measure is as long as you're doing, again, the education is a bit more passive because it's on demand, although you could set up live Zooms or live workshops. But this is where you can really measure. And, at least you need one of these for one of these. That's with 100% enrollment. We could be conservative and say you need to do this twice for every enrollment. So it's a 2 for 1. Therefore, if your goal is to do a deal a day, 5 a week, we better do 10 evaluations. But you can follow that math. All right, so let's get down to the resources here, and no change on this. 903-200-8781. Answered live by real people Mondays through Fridays. That's a business phone number. It doesn't have text. I guess you could text it, but I don't think text is activated. We don't text on that number. It's a phone number. It's for calling. We have a different number that we use for texting, 903-347-8042. Some of you like to call this number, and some of you get frustrated when no one answers a fucking phone. Well, you need to call the right phone. This is for texting. For texting. That's why it says text. And that's usually the best way, quickest way to reach us. If you just want to schedule a call, calendly.com/weekfunding. If you need quick cash, it's on 509. If you want to become a reseller, if you're not already one, 509pacific.org. If you are one, but you feel like you don't maybe have the most recent implementation kit, no concern, no cost. Just go ahead and fill this out again. We'll see that it's a repeat, but again, no harm, no foul. And then we'll send you the implementation kit again. Past trainings are up on YouTube. All right, so we get just a minute or two left. Who has questions, comments, concerns? I'll do a recap, and you can type your questions, comments, concerns into the Q&A. So, recap. No Zoom on Monday. It's Memorial Day. Have a great day. We'll be closed. Want to make sure everyone's open for business. If not, text us. Let us know what you need. We'll get it fixed. We want you helping people. We want you making money. And then today we had part 2 of blank check financing. We added a visual cue today, which are our real checks and the hood of our real company car. But the bottom line is It's a concept that, yes, entrepreneur, yes, prospect, if you need money to start or grow a business, it's achievable, it's attainable. And we guarantee in writing, we promise, we pinky promise, we can get you funding to start or grow a business. And we can get you at least enough money to pay for the shelf corp, which is paid to you, the reseller. We can get you with check number 2 at least 100,000, because that's what the shelf corp is already built to do. And if that's not enough, we can work with you to get whatever you want, write whatever number you want into that blank check. But we need to understand we have to qualify for it, right? This is not a game. Most of the people that state negative information about us, it's because they don't understand. They think, oh, I can just write in $5 trillion and you guys better get me $5 trillion in 30 days or you're a scam. Well, that's ridiculous, right? You have to qualify for it. So, our best approach is to break it down into 3 checks. We'll get them the money to pay you through guaranteed financing. We have over 40 different lenders, so we can definitely get them financing to pay you for the shelf corp. Not a question, no matter how bad their credit is. Secondly, we can definitely get them their first 100,000. It's in writing. We promise it. The shelf corp's built to do that. And if that's not enough, we can help them get whatever additional amount they want. However, there's going to be extra steps here, right? Because we're going to have to meet the fundability guidelines of this, and there's not some generic answer. We're going to have to look at how much money do they want, what are they going to use it for, what are their baseline credibility standards. But yeah, don't feel like you need to turn people away that want large capital raises. All right, with that said, I hope it was helpful. Have a great 3-day weekend. We'll see you back Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock Central. Let us know if you need anything. Thanks. Bye.